Hi everyone, this is Mindy and welcome to the Honeybee Stamps Happy Hearts YouTube Hop. We have lots of inspiration and giveaways for you, so to be eligible to win one of two $50 gift cards to Honeybee Stamps, make sure you let us know down in the comments what is on your wish list from the Honeybee Stamps release. Also, be sure to subscribe to the Honeybee Stamps YouTube channel for a lot more inspiration, and then be sure to hop along with us and leave comments for the other designers as well. My card for you today is featuring the Lovely Layers Pansy die set. Beautiful set. Honeybee Stamps always does such a great job with their layering die sets. Now, on the packaging, it shows you how it layers together and even gives you a color suggestion. I'm going to change the colors up just a little bit. So first I did a bunch of die cutting off screen. I die cut enough so I would have 3 flowers. Now I only end up using 2, but I do have it die cut out for 3 and I'll save the other one for later. So what I did was I'm taking my pieces and just kind of lining them up, fitting them together like a puzzle. They're really easy to line up. I usually kind of find one corner that always matches up and just use that as my guide. Once I have that, I'm putting the rest of my pieces in order on my work surface so that they're always in the same order and I can ink blend them a lot quicker. So once I have that done, I'm going to show you what I like to do for color inspiration. I actually just Googled a pansy flower and it came up with a bunch of different results. I really liked this one in the center here. It's got that bright, deep purple in the center and then some hot pink edges to it. Now, all of my flowers are die cut out of 80-pound white cardstock, and I'm going to be working on this waffle flower media mat. It's a silicone surface that's going to kind of hold my cardstock in place a little better than my glass mat would. And as I'm going through, I'm ink blending with a Bubblegum Ink, which is a really light pink, and I'm just using these small blending brush daubers to add that ink. I don't need to add ink to the entire piece of cardstock. I just need to add it to the piece that's going to be exposed once it's layered together. Now, I'm also not going in all the way. I'm only going in part of the way because in my picture, there were kind of some areas of white where the pink and the purple on each end. So there's a white strip in the middle. So that's all I'm gonna work with right now for that light pink is just those very outer edges kind of blending in towards the center. Then I'm going to come in with a taffy ink. This is the color I found best compared to the picture that I had was this really bright kind of fuchsia ink. Now for this one, I'm going back over those areas, but I'm just barely coming in, just a smidge on those outer edges. Technically, I guess you could skip that light pink, but I really wanted to kind of have that base to work with. Now, I'm also not doing all of them on screen here for you. I'm just doing the one. And as I kind of figured out exactly how this was going to look, because I really had no idea, then I can go through and do the rest of them at the same time. Now I'm bringing in Iris, which is a really rich purple. You can see as I tapped off some ink on my surface there was a lot of ink on there. It's pretty deep and intense, and I loved it. So I'm coming in on the opposite end. There you can see my center. And what I do kind of almost each time is line that up on the previous piece so I know exactly where that purple needs to go. The purple was kind of in the center of the flower in that picture I showed earlier. And so I start in the center and I kind of just softly blend my way out. So I have that white gap in between those two colors. You can also kind of tell on each piece what parts are going to be showing because there are some detail lines that the die creates when you die cut it. Might be a little hard to see on screen, but well, actually, as I ink blended, you can see them kind of pop out a little more. Sometimes with the white cardstock, it's hard to see, but as you add that ink, they'll start to show more. Now on this last piece, the piece that's in the very back, this one only needs a little bit. I probably did some over ink blending there with the edges. A lot of that's not going to show. So this one, there's just a little bit that's going to end up peeking through. Now I have my pieces all lined up so I know exactly how I'm going to glue them, and I do clean up my work surface. I know that mat is pretty stained, and that's because I like to use a lot of pink dye ink. So now I'm going to start attaching my layers. I went ahead and did all my other flowers off screen, and I'm using my liquid glue and my tweezers to start piecing these together. I always line it up before adding the glue just so I am kind of making sure where it's going to fit. Now, I do apologize. I missed somewhere in my video where I did the ink blending for the centers and attaching those. And those I just did one in yellow and one in orange ink and layered together to add to the center. Now, these ones I'm ink blending are the buds that are kind of an additional smaller flower you can do. I'm going to have these kind of poking out of my arrangement. So for this one, I just used the iris and the taffy. The iris went down towards where the stem is going to be, and then the taffy, or the bright pink, is going on that outer edge. Now for the piece that's going to be behind, I just did a little bit of pink there because not a lot is going to be showing. These are the stems for that bud, and then the other pieces are the leaves. So you actually get 2 dies for the leaves, and one of each faces a different direction. And I'm just going over all of those with a large blending brush and Aspen ink. Then I'm going to come in with Pine ink, which is a really nice rich green. I'm taking that small blending tool again, and for the stems, I just added a little bit right where it's going to connect to the bud. And then for the leaves, I'm just going to put it on the side that is more than likely going to be facing down towards the ground. So you can see as they're curved, this one's kind of curved to the right. I'm putting my darkest color on the bottom of that piece. There isn't any layering of the leaves, so I think by adding this darker color there, it's really going to help kind of add that contrast. Now I'm just putting my buds together with my liquid glue and attaching the stems. I'll set my flowers off on the side, and I'm going to start working on a sentiment. And a sentiment I picked out is going to be coming off of this Bitty Buzzwords stamp. I really like this because I like that scripty font, but I also like that these are a little bit smaller of a size. So I chose the word hello, and I have this with 80-pound white cardstock. I'm going to kind of prep that, so I'm rubbing my hand over the stamp set because this word is brand new. I haven't used the word hello yet. And then I'm inking that up with the intense black ink from Honeybee Stamps. It did stamp fairly well the first time, but I'm going to stamp it again just to make sure I have a really good complete coverage. I have a smaller sub-sentiment picked out, and I wanted to heat emboss that. So I have some black cardstock here that I'm prepping with my anti-static powder tool, and I'm going to ink up that sentiment in the white pigment ink from Honeybee Stamps. I'm going to just gently stamp that down onto the cardstock, and I like to do it one more time just to make sure I have really good coverage of that. Then I will take this over and sprinkle this with white embossing powder. I'm tapping that excess off back into my container. And once my heat tool is nice and warmed up, I like to come from the back and then switch over to the front to finish melting that embossing powder. To wipe off my powder, I like to take a Swiffer cloth, but if that doesn't get my cardstock clean, I like to take just a regular eraser and kind of buff away around my sentiment, and that really helps that black cardstock pop. Then I can just take this over to my mini paper trimmer and trim my sentiment out into a thin strip. I'm also going to die cut out my sentiment using the coordinating die and a low tack tape to hold my die in place. Off screen, I kind of fiddled around with the arrangement. I started in the center and then just kind of gradually worked down into this bottom left-hand corner, and I'm working on 80-pound white cardstock for this. Now, I could have picked this up with some press and seal, but I don't know. I like it better for me to just do it myself. So once my arrangement is kind of laid out, I start with the pieces that are in the very far back, which typically is my leaves. Then I'm bringing in those buds and just adding liquid glue behind them and tucking them in behind the flowers. Now, if you wanted to save yourself some time and possible frustration, you could certainly use the press and seal to just place over the entire arrangement and pick it up that way, and then you could glue everything down in one easy sweep. But I don't know, for some reason, this just works for me. Now the flower that's going to be pretty much sitting on top of everything, I'm going to add a little bit of thin foam tape behind this because there is kind of a lot of layers going on right now. And if I were to glue it straight down to the cardstock, it would be kind of bumpy behind it. So I like to add just a thin layer of foam tape and then place that over the top. So there's just a little bit of dimension to that. Now I did also cut out a few extra of that coordinating die hello, and I'm going to stack those together with liquid glue. And then I'm adding some thin foam squares just to the right-hand side of that word because that is the side that's going to be hanging off of my flowers. The beginning part of the word hello is going to be overlapping. So that part I'm just going to add some liquid glue to. I like to use my tweezers to grab that and just kind of hover over the area to make sure it's straight before I really push down and secure that to the front of the card. Then for the smaller sentiment, I lined that with some thin black foam squares, and I'm going to add a little bit to one end because that's also overhanging my flower as well. Now I felt like my card was just kind of missing something at this point. I wasn't sure exactly what it was missing, but I decided I was going to add it to a colored piece of cardstock. So I took this over to my paper trimmer and I'm very carefully trimming off a little bit off of each side and also from the top and the bottom. I don't remember exactly what this ended up being for size, maybe about 3 3/4 by 5 inches, give or take. And then I layered that panel with some white cardstock as well, just to kind of give it a little bit of lift. And then I can attach it to a fog card panel that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I thought the fog just tied in a nice neutral color to my colorful flowers. Now I'm going to finish this off with some gold Glimmer enamel stickers, and to be honest, one of the reasons I dug these out was I had a little speckle kind of down here underneath that Sweet Friends and I couldn't get it off. So that is what kind of triggered my idea to use some enamel stickers. I kind of covered it up with those stickers, and plus it just added some nice gold glitter to it. And that's going to finish off my card project for you today. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to leave comments along the way to be entered into the giveaways. I will have a link to the next person down below in the video description along with the supplies that I used. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you again soon.